Right, let's go on the other team then. Right, Wicked, what do you think of the Misfits team? Because obviously, I think they've shocked almost everyone with how this split's gone so far.
I think Misfits just showing that they're extremely good all around. Like, I don't really find any weakness of them. Like, earlier we were talking about the bets you were doing on DJ Esports, and I've done 3 bets, and 2 of them are Misfits this week because the odds are really good on them. And I feel like they seem to be the strongest team right now from the games we've seen so far. So I don't really have anything special on Misfits because of that. They just seem solid.
What do you think, Rich?
I think Razork's a monster, and I think while I agree that Misfits, like, when they play well, they have fairly well-rounded performances. Like, you don't feel like, oh, Matt, it's not like when Mad had a Rome top, right? And you're like, they're winning, like, in spite of him, right? It's like, there's none of that going on. But at the same time, I feel like Razork is, like, kind of secretly, like, understatedly carrying this team. I think this guy is playing out of his mind and out jungling basically every jungler he's played so far in the LEC. Even in the game that they lost, I thought he played well. Like, I think this guy's just an absolute monster. And if obviously we're what, 7 games in or whatever, but if I had to like pick MVP of the split so far this season, it's Razork. Like, comfortably Razork for sure. This guy's a beast at the moment.
Yeah, if people don't know, the weirdest thing about that as well, because I remember actually when I did the Elitist Unite episode where we knew this guy was coming into LEC, and I remember Veteran saying, the bizarre thing is, when he played in the ERLs, his mid laner was that Milliker guy who basically didn't make it to Vitality, and then when he did, he just never turned up as a player, obviously, and no one gives a fuck about that guy. Basically, supposedly Razork literally was a guy who would just hard camp Milliker's fucking lane all the time in the ERLs. So, funny thing is, coming in, it was the Milliker guy who was mega hyped. Everyone's like, it's a fucking monster. And then everyone thought, I don't even know if the Razork guy's good. Like, is he basically just like the fucking butler to this guy's like Batman? Like, is he doing anything? But what's mad is you look at the players he's played with now. He obviously had Febevan. Now he's got literally a rookie. Like, clearly this guy is not just a fucking bot just camping mid lane, is he? Like, he clearly understands the game and he knows when to play with different players. No, it seems like he has Z2 done. What's mad is, I have to say, obviously, Deficio is a massive fan favourite, or not just, forget him, just fan favourite, just an industry favourite. So a lot of people aren't going to be like super critical of him. I think he's actually done a very good job with this team. I mean, I even told him when you actually knew the numbers in fucking Origin, he was working miracles in that team as well. He was getting motherfuckers to join who had no business joining for that money just to come and play with other players. So when you look at this team, no one had massive expectations for Misfits. A lot of these players, let's be real, they weren't like the winners in a bidding war for the biggest names. So I actually think they've done a pretty fucking good job with how they put this team together. Because when you're saying that, like, they've got Vandus, they've got experience. It's also a role you'd want experience in. They've got, in theory, one of the best junglers, and it looks like he actually understands how the game's played. He's not just a fucking bot being called to the lanes. I'm still a bit quiet. I think the one that I have like a massive question mark on is the Hirik guy in top lane. Like, I've heard a lot of hype, but I don't know yet. I'll have to see on that one. I'm not a massive expert on top lane. Vethio looks fucking sick. Then again, the champion pool is basically what he wants to play. So I think the piece is there. The problem I have with this team is, I've seen this too many times. It's like, if you ever start the split too well and you're just winning clean from day one, well, what do you think happens? You just go pillar to post and just fucking win every single game. No, what it tends to happen, unfortunately, is you cool off when the playoffs comes and you come like 4th or, 5th or something like that. That just tends to be the way the season goes, because it's also insanely hard to keep people on track that many weeks. So I do feel like eventually the burnout's going to come up. Other teams are going to get their shit together. But right now, I'm with you, Wicked. They're probably the best team in LEC right now. Like, I kind of allude to like what Rich said earlier. On paper, I still feel like it should on paper be Rogue and G2, but it isn't. It just isn't right now. What were you going to say?
Also, one thing I want to mention with this team, right? We talked about Excel earlier having no communication, or at least Rich said so, and the team falling apart, even though they have amazing skill, right? If you look at this team, it actually looks like they build their team together. You have Vanda and Cobber, who I know both talk and have good communication, so they can lead the game around. And then Razak, as you guys were mentioning, is a beast. So it looks like these guys build a team. It wasn't the most high players. They just built a solid team that actually performs. And I think that's something a lot of people forget when they're trying to build teams. They're just thinking, this guy's a mechanical genius, get him, get that guy. This guy plays amazing. But it doesn't fit together. You need the puzzle pieces that actually fits into the puzzle. And I think they achieved that.
Yeah, I kind of see Razork and Melissa's like ERL relationship very similar to Selfmade and Nemesis's relationship when they were both in ERLs as well, playing together, where it wasn't quite the same or to the same extent, where people did generally think like Selfmade was really good as well, but the praise was essentially like spread even. Like, it's like both of these guys are really good in their individual positions, but as soon as you kind of either separate them for a bit and then put them back together, you can really see like where the value is in that sense, right? So I think that kind of happened with Razork as well, where it's like, as you say, initially he's playing with Milica. It's unclear, although a really in-depth game expert might be able to tell, who's doing more, let's say. But once you separate them and he starts playing on his own and he's playing with another really good mid laner, you're still not sure because it's Featherburn. Maybe Featherburn's having a renaissance or whatever. And then you put Milica back in and it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And now you're playing with a French rookie, a completely different player who doesn't have any real stock behind him yet. Like this guy, at this point, I think this guy's just proven, right? I mean, people forget. I'm pretty sure Razork was rookie of the split, was he not, in his first?
I think
split?
He probably was. That was the split when him and Featherburn were going ham. I remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was. So, like at this point, I feel like there's enough body of work behind this guy to just be straight up like this guy. It's not that he's playing well, like. I use that for someone if I see Jack Troll have a good performance, right. I'll be like, he's playing well. Sure. Like this guy's legit in my opinion. And then by the way, to your point of like starting well is like not necessarily, a precursor to ending well, let's say. I think a lot of it, obviously on the very basic level, like, okay, if a team is cleanly winning, then everyone's just going to watch what they're doing, right? And be like, okay, well, they're doing this and then adapt to it. But I also think, and this will apply to some of the other teams, G2 especially, the early regular season is so much about understanding draft and meta and stuff like this that sometimes something will just click, especially like player for player. If you're dealing with like an assassin meta, for example, a couple of people might just really pop off who, if the meta shifts, maybe suddenly the team just collapses because there's a chain reaction, or then it moves to control mage or whatever the case may be, right? But with and with Misfits, it's like, yeah, they're winning now. I genuinely have no idea what direction it's going to go into. I trust the bot lane. I trust the jungler. I think mid and top have both had good games, and top's had a couple of underwhelming games, but I don't think he's been like a black mark by any stretch.
Sure.
So for me, I'm not expecting them to drop off necessarily. I just don't know what's going to happen after like the typical sort of mid-season meta shifts that's probably invariably going to be introduced. I genuinely don't know. They're like a wild card to me right now.
And by the way, I will say this. Shout out to Deficio for being one of the few people who actually fucking understands who Kobe is as an AD carry. You don't put him in your team if you then want to have a fucking weak side top laner. Like, that's why TSM were clueless as fuck when he was in their team. This is like, when you see this team and you understand these players and their history, like Deficio understood, I'm going to have 2-6 solo laners and Kobe is going to be an AD carry who, if he goes to team fights, will do his fucking job. Like, I always said the guy is just like fucking poor man's reckless, but he does the job really well. Like, as long as you put him in the right team, he's always going to be like a consistent player. Seems like he has a very good teammate, just does his job, keeps his head down, And my problem with Kobe is just if people try and hype him like they did when he was in Splice and be like, he is the MVP of the league. It's like, it's none of these things. What are you talking about, you daft fuck? He wasn't even the best in that team. That team had fucking Humanoid on when he was in his rookie split and fucking Vizicachi. What? You're telling me this guy was the fucking best? No way. But anyway, that's by the by. That was also RIP back when Noscarum was actually a good player. Just referencing that. That's how long ago we're talking about here. So, want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then. Or, be a pleb and don't.